Good evening. The DAR Constitution Week program for tonight is about to begin and is being broadcast live on Facebook from the Safford City Graham County Library. I'm Vicki Foote, a member of our local DAR Gila Valley chapter. You just heard the robust music of Yankee Doodle, and you were probably singing the words with vigor. This song was well known among the colonies before the American Revolution began. You may be surprised to learn that this song was created by the British during the French and Indian War when the colonists joined forces with the British. Compared to the polished look of the British soldiers, the colonists were a motley crew in their furs and buckskins. The British began mocking the colonists, fighting alongside them with verses that use words like Yankee for a New Englander, Doodle for a simpleton, Dandy used sarcastically to refer to a gentleman with fine manners, clothes, and hairstyle, and Macaroni to describe men who went to extremes to appear sophisticated and stylish, and that a colonist could stick a feather in his coonskin cap and think he was as fashionable as any European. When the American Revolutionary War began on April the 19th, 1775, at the battles of Lexington and Concord, this time the British were attacking the colonists, who were now known as patriots. Since the patriots were strong in number and skilled at fighting in wooded areas, the British had to retreat. That is when the patriots began singing Yankee Doodle to mock the retreating redcoats. At that point, it became their marching song throughout the war. When you hear that song, may it remind you of the spirit of those marching patriots who gave us the freedom we have today. And during this pandemic, may this song lift your spirits. And now, to welcome you to our Constitution Week program, here is Bonnie Briscoe, a member of the Gila Valley chapter and the organizer of tonight's program.
Thank you, Vicki. Welcome to the 7th annual DAR Constitution Week program. For the first time being broadcast live on the Safford Library Facebook from the broadcast studio of the library's program room. I wish you could see our studio. This program is co-hosted by the Friends of the Library and the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Gila Valley chapter. This program would not have been possible without the exceptional help over the last 3 months of Victoria Silva, Library Director, Leslie Talley, Library Supervisor, John and Margaret Raichie, and Friends of the Library. In fact, it's the Friends of the Library that provide this facility for us for the last 7 years. So I would like for Paulette LeBlanc to come up, President of the Friends of the Library, to welcome you.
Thank you, Bonnie, and welcome. This is a really historic kind of presentation for us. My name, as Bonnie said, is Paulette LeBlanc, and I'm president of Friends of the Library. And we have been co-hosting this opportunity with the Daughters of the American Revolution for 7 years, as she said. But tonight is different. Tonight, we're going to take a little bit of a different twist. Normally, I am standing here in front of about 100 people. And normally, we would have snacks with the main ingredient being molasses after the event. I'm already missing that. But I want to say the Friends of the Library had the easiest part here. My job was to show up and to welcome you. The real lion's share of the work belongs to the Daughters of the American Revolution and the library staff. And when I think of what they have accomplished tonight to bring this to you, the word that comes to mind is courageous. It was courageous of Bonnie Briscoe to step up and say, we are going to do this. It was courageous of the staff to say, we are going to make that happen. And it reminds me of the courageous spirit of our country's patriots. It's a connection for me, and I hope you appreciate that tonight. So, without further ado, I guess I'm going to turn this back over to Bonnie. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy.
Thank you. This year, to promote our Constitution Week program through the library's Facebook page, there are 5 promotionals were videotaped, and they can still be seen under the video section of the library's Facebook page. Be sure to watch an interview with Gary Burnett, Mr. Constitution, in his George Washington uniform, Nancy Shawman, maybe I should say frisky Nancy Shawman, with her colonial recipes passed down through her family, John Hancock calling for a vote during the Second Continental Congress, colonial maiden Talana Hooper reading 2 different children's stories, one about farm life during that period and another book on flags of our country. So just know that you can still look at those, and you'll find out at the end of the program how this is going to be archived so you can watch it. You can watch it for many times as you want. I'm going to turn this over to Leslie Talley. She's going to tell you about virtual refreshments.
Okay, so as Paulette mentioned, usually tonight involves a refreshment table. The centerpiece of that being different versions of shoe fly pie. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the history of shoe fly pie. So shoe fly pie began as a crustless molasses cake in 1876. It was made to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia and was called Centennial Cake. Between 1876 and the early 1880s, the cake migrated to a pie shell. Though it is now usually eaten as a dessert, it was originally, and in some areas of Pennsylvania still is, eaten as a breakfast staple, dipped in a cup of coffee. This pie is closely associated with the Pennsylvania Dutch community. According to some, the name came from days of old when bakers would have to shoo flies away from pies cooling on the windowsill. Others say the name came from the old song entitled "Shoo Fly, Don't Bother Me," that became popular a half-century before. Still others say the pie takes its name from Shoo Fly the boxing mule that was part of a popular traveling circus act in the Dutch country. The mule had gotten its name from the before-mentioned song. As usually happens when things become famous, the mule's name was branded onto a number of products, such as Shoo Fly horse powder, Shoo Fly flour, Shoo Fly molasses, and of course, Shoo Fly pie. There are 2 basic kinds of Shoo Fly pie, one with crumbs mostly on top, and another with lots of crumbs or streusel thoroughly stirred in, yielding a more cake-like pie. Neither version is more authentic than the other. So which Shoo Fly pie is superior, wet or dry? That question can only be answered by you with what your family most prefers, or you can try them both and deciding yourself which is the better one. So you can download a copy of both of these versions of Shoo Fly pie in the notes section right here on our Facebook page. So just go to notes and they're there to download. If you'd like a paper copy, stop by the library and we have those printed out and available for you.
You know, this year we've heard a lot about the Constitution and we've heard a lot about our founding fathers. And I'm Paula Price, and I'm proud to be a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, the DAR, who is probably most responsible for the tradition of celebrating the Constitution. In 1955, the Daughters petitioned Congress with a resolution to set aside September the 17th through the 23rd every year to be dedicated for the observance of Constitution Week. This resolution was adopted by Congress and signed into law by President Dwight D. Eisenhower on August 2nd, 1956. The week, 17th through the 23rd of September, is Constitution Week, but today is the very special day. It's the 233rd anniversary of the signing of the Constitution. The Daughters of the American Revolution is our aim is to educate the public about the Constitution and to encourage the study of the historical events that led to the signing of the Constitution. The tradition of celebrating the Constitution is to keep our ancestors' legacy alive by promoting the ideas they fought valiantly to give us what we have today. Now I'd like to have Vicki Foote come up and tell you about our Strawberries for Scholarships.
Hello again. This little blurb is about a chapter with a sweet fundraiser, Strawberries for Scholarships. About 5 years ago, one of our members, Jennifer Griffith, headed up a chapter fundraiser committee. With a slew of ideas presented to the chapter, selling chocolate-covered strawberries was a hit with all of the taste buds. Susan Safford, another chapter member, offered her frame shop at the Oleo Spread Ranch, diagonally across from Walmart, for a distribution spot on Valentine's Day. Now it is also the place where the strawberries are washed, dried, dipped, and plated. A process that starts at 7 o'clock in the morning on Valentine's, with everyone wearing coats and caps in a room with no heat to keep the chocolate-covered strawberries fresh, and ends 12 hours later after the last plate is distributed. You can imagine there is a ton of preparation beforehand that takes place, with setting up the studio, getting the publicity out, taking orders, and calculating the amount of different chocolates, nuts, and plates needed. Not only do members pitch in to help with the whole process, but for the last 3 years, students from the Mount Graham High School and their sponsors, Shana Maston and John Nicholas, who want to reach out to the community doing volunteer work, have been a tremendous help. At the end of the day, they have acquired the culinary skill of dipping, swizzling, and rolling chopped pecan nuts around the chocolate-dipped strawberries, which is actually quite an art. With the members, sponsors, and students working together, it always turns out to be a most enjoyable day of camaraderie. One of the most heartwarming parts of all this is when people come to pick up their orders. Every year, our list of customers grows. Our customers come in all shapes and sizes, but the one thing they have in common is always thanking us for the opportunity to help raise funds for local student scholarships. Even though we are pretty exhausted by the end of the day, the outreach of the community definitely lifts our spirits in knowing what a good impact we will have for our local students. Next is Talana Hooper to tell about our patriotic essay contest. Talana?
Thank you, Vicki. 5 years ago, the idea of offering a scholarship to local students evolved from when one of our chapter members, Jennifer Griffith, recognized the need for financial help for high school students who were dual enrolled at EAC. She brought up a plan to implement a patriotic essay contest, which was unanimously accepted by the chapter. Details were worked out, and the chapter began offering scholarships. This is our 5th year. With the successful Strawberries for Scholarships fundraiser, the chapter this year offers one $500 and two $250 scholarships to high school students in Graham County who are dual enrolled at EAC. They're taking general education classes without financial assistance from the GIFT program or the school districts. The winnings for each of these scholarships are placed into the accounts of the winning students at EAC. In order to apply for this scholarship, the student submits a patriotic essay based on a topic selected by the chapter. The essay is then judged by 3 or more chapter members. Since the essays are submitted each year at the end of August, we use this occasion during Constitution Week to recognize the winners. It is a privilege for us tonight to announce 3 winners of the 11 essays submitted this year. Our newly installed Gila Valley Chapter Regent, Helen Maston, will have the honor of introducing the winners. Helen.
Thank you, Talana. I'm excited. Before revealing the names of the winners, I want to mention how these students and their essays will be recognized. A certificate for their accomplishments will be given to each winner from the DAR Gila Valley chapter. Looks kind of like this. And their scholarship money will be placed in their accounts at Eastern Arizona College to use for tuition and books. Next month, all of the winners and their essays will be featured in the local newspapers, and they will be guests on KTAO Radio's Voice of the Valley to share portions of their essays. Now, for a little drum roll. I'm not a drummer. From us here in the library's broadcasting studio, and those of you at home watching, this year's winners, all from Thatcher High School, are Samantha Palmer, junior class, Dathan Karchner, junior class, and Mackenzie Windsor, senior class. As much as we would like to hear the essays of all 3 students tonight, due to the limited time of our program, we have asked Samantha Palmer to read her essay for you. The essay topic is How the Founding Fathers Are Relevant to Me Today as a Young Citizen of the United States. Please welcome Samantha Palmer.
I'm Samantha Palmer, like she said, and I'm from Thatcher High School, and I'm a junior. So our essay topic was how the Founding Fathers their sacrifices are still relevant to me as a young citizen in the United States of America. So here's my essay. Are we still affected by the choices of people hundreds of years ago? Yes. People sacrificed so much for what they believed was right, and their efforts are still impacting millions of youth in this great nation today. Imagine living in a place where you couldn't choose what to wear, where to go on the weekends, or who to spend your time with. The achievements of the Founding Fathers of the United States of America let us chase after every one of our dreams and choose how we will live life. We each have the opportunity to freely practice religion, gain an education, be protected by the law, and countless other freedoms. Because of the Founding Fathers, our basic rights are safeguarded, and we get to make the best of our existence. All of our lives would be very different without the Founding Fathers of this remarkable nation. Because of the Founding Fathers' accomplishments, we have so many rights and freedoms that other nations around the globe don't get to enjoy. We are so fortunate to live in a country that protects our rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Founding Fathers declared our independence from Great Britain. Their choices to separate themselves from their mother country must have been very menacing. They put their lives on the line to ensure our freedoms. Their bravery and success allowed them to set up a government for this new nation. Their courageous actions allow each of us to enjoy countless freedoms in our everyday lives. One of these freedoms we have, according to the Bill of Rights and Sarah Crow, is the freedom of religion. This freedom has had remarkable effects on many people in this country. I have personally witnessed religion bring people so much hope and joy. When people are free to worship as they choose, they are happier, which is one of our basic rights. The churches my friends and I go to have taught us important standards. These values make us better citizens of the United States of America. I can't imagine this country without religion. Another way the Founding Fathers have impacted our young lives is the opportunity to go to school. According to the ACLU Department of Education, We, as children in the United States, have the right to free education at a public school. No matter race, age, gender, or social status, each young citizen has the right to an education. Because we are receiving schooling now, we have opportunities for higher ranking and better paying careers in the future. According to Elite Daily Staff and Sarah Crow, some girls in other countries have a very difficult time getting an education. I'm so fortunate that even as a female, I get to freely obtain an education. One more freedom we've been given is that we are kept safe by the law. We are so fortunate to be able to walk down the street and not worry about being kidnapped, shot at, or physically abused. There are police officers, judges, and others whose sole responsibility is to protect us. Additionally, the Second Amendment states that we have the right to bear arms. Because of this freedom, people everywhere can own firearms. If needed, we can protect ourselves. Furthermore, we all have the freedom to defend ourselves. In the case of someone attempting to beat up or kidnap one of us, we would be able to fight back and have the law on our side. These safeguards can give us all comfort and peace of mind. In conclusion, the Founding Fathers have given us the liberty to live our lives as we choose because of the freedoms they have given us. The freedoms I included are only a few that the Founding Fathers have made available to each of us. There are countless ways their heroic actions have impacted our everyday lives. The Founding Fathers set an example for each of us to stand up for what is right. They taught us courage. As these men are risking their lives, they thought of us. The Constitution of the United States of America says, "And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity." I am overwhelmed with joy when I think of how their hopes have been realized. We are each eternally indebted to these great men for the boundless liberties we get to enjoy for all of our lives.
Thank you so much, Samantha, and congratulations on your winning. Here is your certificate, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Now, returning to the podium is Bonnie Briscoe, this time from 1776. You will see how well she's aged.
What do you think? Do you think I did okay? I feel younger, actually. This is always a privilege. John Hancock has come forward from 1776 now for 5 years, and every time he makes that trip, he's fresher, more refreshed than any of us. And of course, John Hancock is being portrayed by John Raichie, and we always appreciate the input and the vigor that he gives, and so very historic. So without further ado, at home, you just applaud, and here is Mr. John Hancock.
Good evening. Following the Declaration of Independence, the new country continued with war with Great Britain for 7 more years, coming to its end in 1783 with the signing of the Treaty of Paris. Governance during the war years was exceedingly difficult, and stemming from wartime urgency, the Articles of Confederation was written to allow the new country to proceed with its business. However, the progress was slowed by fears of central authority. In addition, there were extensive land claims of states that had to be settled before the document was ratified on March 1st, 1781. Under these articles, the states remained sovereign and independent, with Congress serving as the last resort on appeal of disputes. The Articles of Confederation gave the Congress power to declare war, make peace, sign treaties, borrow money, establish an army and navy, organize a post office. But beware, there was no chief executive, no national court system, no power to draft soldiers, no power to control interstate commerce, no power to enforce treaties, no power to collect taxes from the states, no national currency, difficult to pass laws with 2/3 vote required, and it was difficult to amend the articles. A unanimous vote was required. And during this time, the United States is bursting at the seams. 13 sovereign and independent states, 13 different monetary systems, new land all the way to the Mississippi River, border disputes, policy entanglements, economic problems. The resulting chaos and frustration, in addition to bad harvest, economic depression, and high taxes, threatened farmers with the loss of their farms. Farmers were taken to court, then to jail, and as debtors, their land was taken away from them. In 1786, an armed revolt by farmers against the state governments took place. The revolt was led by Daniel Shea, a former captain in the Continental Army. In a series of protests known as Shea's Rebellion, the farmers began to forcibly prevent the courts from meeting. Verging on anarchy, the last battle of Shea's Rebellion was fought in Sheffield, Massachusetts, on February 27, 1787. The rebels were defeated just 3 months before the Constitutional Convention convened in Philadelphia. Shea's Rebellion, however, showed the leaders of America that the Articles of Confederation were too weak. A stronger national government was needed. The nation needed to function as one united country, not 13 small, unorganized nations. And so, on May 25, 1787, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, they freshly spread dirt covering the cobblestone street in front of the Pennsylvania State House, protecting the men inside from the sound of passing carriages and carts. Guards stood at the entrance to ensure that the curious were kept at a distance. Even though through the summer the days were hot and humid, the windows were closed to enforce an order of secrecy. Robert Morris of Pennsylvania, the financier of the Revolution, opened the proceedings with a nomination, General George Washington, for the presidency of the Constitutional Convention, and the vote was unanimous. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, arrived in Philadelphia early in May, allowing him to incorporate his ideas into an incredible plan, the Virginia Plan, representing no mere revision of the Articles of Confederation, but the adoption of an entirely new Constitution. Of the 70 men chosen to attend the Constitutional Convention, only 55 attended, and of the 55, only 39 signed the document. Many of them left wives and families to be there. It was a very difficult sacrifice at that time. The delegates were involved in debates from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m., 6 days a week, over the 4-month period. Before the Constitutional Convention on Monday, September 17, 1787, 233 years ago today, the Constitution was presented and read aloud. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. They affixed their names to the new Constitution. And although Benjamin Franklin's mind remained active, his body was deteriorating. He could barely walk. He would enter the convention hall in a sedan chair, carried by 4 prisoners from the Walnut Street Jail in Philadelphia. Because of his poor health, Benjamin Franklin needed help to sign the Constitution. And as he did so, tears streamed down his face. The framers understood that their work had just begun. 4 months of debate and compromise paled in comparison to the challenge of convincing 13 states to ratify. Unanimity was not necessary for the Constitution to go into effect. Only 9 of the 13 states were needed to ratify the document. New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify on June 21st, 1788, making the Constitution of the United States of America the law of the land.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock, for that trip you make for us every single year. The mission of DAR, since its beginning in 1890, that's 130 years ago, is to perpetuate the memory and the spirit of the men and women who achieved our American independence, and these are the patriots. And we are familiar with the more famous patriots, like our founding fathers, John Hancock, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and many, many more, who sacrificed a great deal during their adult life to establish a freedom that we experience today. Henry S. Norse, a noted historian and writer from Lancaster, Massachusetts, wrote in 1889, "Equally entitled to our grateful remembrance are the humbler patriots who went out from rustic homesteads patiently to do and suffer, even to mortal agony, in behalf of country, faith, and freedom." So tonight, I'm going to share with you one of my humble patriots and how the newly ratified U.S. Constitution affected his life. So we're going to start out here with a visual. And in looking at this pedigree chart, just to show you when you're looking at your family line. Now here is my generation right here. And then you see we do the parents, and then the grandparents, and then we start with the first great-grandparents, and then the second great, third great, fourth great, and then on here, the fifth great. So my patriot was my 5th great-grandfather. And so you realize that we get an idea of 8 generations out that we find this patriot in the family. And with DAR, everyone who joins DAR has to have a patriot documented. So that's why all of us in this wonderful organization know about patriots. And so you're going to say, well, who is this 5th great-grandfather of yours? And so we have Joshua Cheever Fowler. And it's interesting that when you look at that name and you notice the middle name is Cheever, and so that's his maternal line, and that's the name that he went by. He chose Cheever. What's interesting is if you go 8 generations beyond him, then you get into the strong Irish Catholic line that migrated to England, and then they went on to America. The origin of the name Cheever comes from one who herds goats. So it's often thought that these people may be unpredictable, temperamental, but sure-footed. So it's interesting to have that kind of relationship in looking at a name. The other part of this is that in doing family history, location, location, location. And so we look at, to give you an idea of where we are with this patriot in this time. And so you can see Massachusetts right here, but during the time of the 13 colonies, Massachusetts extended up here. Maine was not a state at that time during with the 13 colonies. So that's why you have this district of Massachusetts. And then you see this family. They started out in this Worcester County, Massachusetts, in Lunenburg, and it's Paulette back there that's a Massachusetts person that's showing me how to pronounce that. So we start from Lunenburg, and that family then moved up to New Hampshire, and in Cheshire County, a little town called Surrey. And then at the end of his life, he had moved up to Springfield in Vermont, in Windsor County. So I just wanted you to get a relationship of where we are with this particular patriot. And so Worcester County, Lunenburg, Massachusetts, and in looking at this, Cheever was 18 years before the beginning of the American Revolutionary War. Cheever was born along with his twin sister. And they were the youngest of 7 children, 3 boys and 4 girls. And of the brothers in the family, in the early years of the war, Cheever and his brothers served in militias, and also they served as Minutemen. And at another opportunity, when there's a chance to give a talk, I will focus more fully on their part in that Revolutionary War. His brothers both died in their early 30s, but Cheever would survive and live a relatively full life into his mid-50s and experience life under the new nation's Constitution. So he, after his time in service, he married Lydia Stearns there in Lunenburg, and then in 1780, the family moved to Surrey, Cheshire County, New Hampshire. So in looking at that, he purchased a farm and he raised a family of 11 children. And what's interesting is that the last 2 children born in his family were twins, a boy and a girl. And so he named the boy after himself, Joshua Cheever Fowler, and the twin sister was named after her mother, Lydia. So you can see how names extend through the family, and how you have to keep up with them, and the different names. While living in Surrey, the newly formed Constitution became effective in 1788, when New Hampshire, which is where they were living, was the 9th state to ratify it. And so in Article 1 of the Constitution, it creates enumeration districts, and those are to count the number of people in each state in order to provide a certain number of representatives from each state to the U.S. Congress. This brought about the first U.S. federal census in 1790. The Fowler family appeared on that census, with Cheever as the head of the household of 2 adults and 6 children. That must have been a very proud and patriotic moment for Cheever and his family. And they would appear on the census in 1800 and 1810. Under the new formed Constitution, Cheever would be able to help form a Baptist society in a town not far from Surrey. Freedom of religion is expressed in the First Amendment of the Constitution. And it says, Congress makes no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So in June of 1800, there were 40 petitioners, including Cheever, that wanted to establish or petition a Baptist society in Westmoreland, which was a small community just west of Surrey. And there were certain requirements of the petitioners. They had to live in that area. And I thought it was interesting on the wording. They had to be professors of the Baptist religion. Now, the professor is not an academic title, but it means that they profess the Baptist faith. And they had to have assembled together for many years for public worship as a Baptist society. And then also equally important, have a sufficient power and authority to support a minister, to build and maintain a meeting house, to raise and collect money for those purposes, and then to choose proper officers to manage the concerns of the society. So as you can see in this democratic country, you have some system that's set up so that these things can be done. But also in the Constitution, there is that freedom of speech. And so then we have the protesters come up. And so now the petition was presented in June of 1800, and then in October of 1800, there was some strong protests against the petition of 25 citizens and the congregation of the old Congregational Church in Surrey. They were concerned that people living in Surrey that attended the Baptist Church in Westmoreland would eventually move out of Surrey. And they were concerned about losing some of their population because it was only a town of 569 people. The language gets a little stronger here on the protests. There was no evidence, according to the protesters, that any of the petitioners belonging to Surrey ever made any profession of religion or of any denomination. And then they got a little stronger, even more so. There was no doubt, there was doubt over the sincerity of the petitioners and the feeling that the real motive was to advance private property and continue disputes rather than promote harmony and good order. And with those, again, the democracy set up and being able to present both sides. But by the end of the year, in December of 1800, the petition was accepted. The society was incorporated by legislative enactment under the name of the First Baptist Society in Westmoreland. And so this is an indication that Cheever was a man of influence in that area. And so in 1807, they had been in this area for a little longer than 25 years, and so then their next move is to Springfield, Vermont, and this is in Windsor County. They purchased the farm, and he lived there the rest of his life. The end of March in 1812, at the age of 55, Cheever wrote his will with words of strong faith. In the name of God, amen, I, Cheever Fowler of Springfield, call to mind the uncertainty of this mortal life, and being of sound and disposing mind and memory, blessed by Almighty God for the same, do make and publish this my last will and testament. He bequeathed his entire estate to his well-beloved wife and children. 10 months after writing his will, he passed away in Springfield at the age of 56. There were 217 items in his personal estate, and just to name a few of the household items: feather bed and quilts, overalls and boots, pewter plates, hand bellows, looking glasses, And then it went on to list all the farm animals, and then the farm equipment, and the wagons that were used for transportation as well as for farm work. But the last item listed is one from the heart: a sleigh, a harness, and sleigh bells. Here was a man who enjoyed sharing the spirit of the winter and Christmas seasons with his family, his friends, and his community. And in so doing, he enjoyed a freedom that he fought for and a constitution that he honored. With him being in my family line, I'm reminded of a familiar quote appropriate for this occasion. We stand upon the shoulders of those who came before us. We gather their legacy by sharing their understanding, their vision, their story. So thank you for listening to this story of my humble patriot, my sure-footed fifth great grandfather, Joshua Cheever Fowler. And now we'll have Leslie Talley come up to the podium, and after her will be Helen Maston.
Hey, thank you, Bonnie. So this event tonight, as well as all of the promotional videos that we've been running here on the Facebook page in the week leading up to this, will be available on our YouTube video on Monday. To find us on YouTube, just go to the search bar and search for Safford City, Graham County Library, and that'll take you to our page. And I'd like to offer a thank you from the library to the Daughters of the American Revolution Gila Valley chapter for allowing us to be a part of this event tonight, honoring our patriots. Now a final word from Helen Maston.
Under normal conditions, we would have a curtain call with all those who made the Constitution Week program come alive. But just know we can hear your applause. Thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed our virtual event. We're going to sign off for now. Stay safe, stay well, and hopefully we will literally see you next year when the pandemic is over and we can come together as a group. In the meantime, God bless America.